Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday, the 6th of February in the afternoon, and I am the Peacemonger. Today, I plan to talk about what Trump may have on his mind in focusing on Greenland. Like it or not, Russia is the biggest polar bear in the Arctic, and this helps to explain President Trump's fixation on Greenland. However, it isn't just a Trump issue. The Biden administration focused on it too. And it is not only about access to resources and military positioning, but also about shipping. And there, the Russians are some way ahead. Many people look on the map in exasperation at President Trump's claim that Russian and Chinese ships are a threat to Greenland. Those same people might also forget that the US and Russia are separated in the Bering Strait by only 2.4 miles between the Diomede Islands, and that the two countries are much closer together when you stare across the North Pole. The big difference is that while the US has an Arctic coastline of 1,060 miles, Russia occupies around 15,000 miles of the Arctic, more than half of the total coastline. Claiming control of Greenland would significantly increase the American Arctic footprint. Let's be clear, the Arctic didn't suddenly appear on the US radar under Trump's administration. The 2024 US Arctic strategy, published under Biden, made it clear that the reduction in sea ice due to climate change means choke points such as the Bering Strait between Alaska and Russia and the Barents Sea north of Norway are becoming more navigable and more economically and militarily significant. This sent jitters through the Kremlin in Moscow, which suggested that Washington was looking for a confrontation to ensure its interests in the region. Prior to President Trump's election, the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, announced that NATO needed to increase its footprint in the Arctic. The accession of Finland and Sweden to NATO helped to do that, of course. However, the Kingdom of Denmark is also a NATO ally. But if you think the Biden administration was more well disposed to the Danes, you might be surprised at the faux pas in the executive summary of the Arctic strategy, in which Denmark was omitted as one of the countries of the European Arctic region. More than half of the Arctic coastline is in Russian territory, and in the past 6 years, 450 new military sites have been built. Russia's submarine-based strategic nuclear deterrent operates largely out of the Arctic. And while claims of Russian and Chinese cooperation in the Arctic are exaggerated, China is not an Arctic nation, though it seeks to lay claim to the region as a global commons. Joint military exercises between both countries in the Arctic have increased since the war in Ukraine started. So while the new US national security strategy spoke of ending the perception and preventing the reality of NATO as a perpetually expanding alliance, the Russians are likely to have fears that Trump's Arctic ambitions amount to an attempt to encircle from the north rather than from the east. And from the US perspective, there remain residual fears that Denmark, unlike the far stronger military nations of Finland and Sweden, would be ill equipped to defend Greenland from afar. The current US military footprint in the Arctic is very small in comparison to Russia's, and Greenland would, in Trump's mind, help to level that up. Trump will also no doubt be focused on the economic value of Greenland, given the supposedly vast natural mineral resources across the Arctic. Some 80% of Russia's gas and 20% of its oil is currently extracted from its Arctic territories. Greenland is thought to house a majority of raw materials deemed critical for electronics, green energy, and military technologies. But it's on the high seas that President Trump may also see considerable benefit in Greenland. And here too, Russia is a long way ahead. Since at least the start of the Ukraine crisis, and with global warming making the Arctic increasingly navigable by sea during the summer months, Russia has been actively developing its Northern Sea Route. Going over the top of the world slashes the distance for ships traveling between Europe and East Asia by 3 times, halving sailing by at least twice, compared to reaching through the Suez Canal, itself a hotspot given tensions with Iran. Russia also exerts complete control over the exclusive economic zone that it passes through. The comparable Northwest Passage over the top of Canada and Alaska is seen as potentially shaving almost 3,500 nautical miles off the shipping routes for cargo that might normally transit the Panama Canal. In 2013, the bulk carrier Nordic Orion made the journey from the eastern US, saving 4 days sailing and $200,000 in the process. However, the legal status of the Northwest Passage is long disputed between Canada and the US, which claims it as internal waters, while the Americans control of Greenland would radically change the balance of power and control over the route, with the US anchoring both choke points in the Bering Sea and into the Atlantic. A less legally contested northwestern passage would also make it easier for the US to maintain unchallenged military navigation across one half of the Arctic waters. Gaining Greenland would make the US both the entry and exit point to the route, reducing the strength of Canada's claim to exclusive control. Right now, relations between Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney are strained, to say the least. Pushing the issue of Greenland may be a tactic by Trump to pressure the rest of Canadians into a deal on the use of the route. Trump's trolling of the Canadians with an AI image of the Oval Office and a map in which the Stars and Stripes covers the territory of Canada must be seen in this light. The Canadians, for their part, have responded today by opening a consulate in Nuuk. For now, the shadow boxing over Greenland seems set to continue, with the Trump administration putting pressure on the Danes and the Europeans to settle a deal amicably. With Greenlanders possessing the right to self-determination from the 2009 Act on Self-Government, the Danes are not exactly standing on terra firma legally. But let's be clear, when Trump talks about Russian ships near Greenland, he probably also means those with cargo as much as those with cannons. I hope you found that insight interesting today. If you did, please do continue to like and subscribe to my channel. I'll continue to provide these analyses of global events as they happen. And until my next video, wherever you are in the world, I wish you very, very much peace.